7 years ago, Mark Thorne held my hand in a sterile hospital room, his knuckles white, and swore we were a team. He promised that our son, Leo, and his shiny new diagnosis of a rare bullshit genetic disorder, the kind that makes people say, I don't know how you do it with a shudder, didn't change a thing. 3 months later, he packed a single Gucci suitcase, left our wedding album on the floor, and stuck a note to a carton of expired milk on the kitchen counter. The team, it turned out, had found a new most valuable player. Isabel, his doe-eyed paralegal, who was already a few months pregnant with his healthy and normal children. The kind of children you can show off at the country club. He traded Leo's endless, grueling physical therapy appointments for prenatal yoga classes in a sun-drenched studio. He swapped our cramped two-bedroom apartment, with its ever-growing collection of medical supplies, for a sprawling new build in the suburbs with a 3-car garage and a ficus tree in the foyer. He meticulously scrubbed his social media of every photo of our son, deleting him from his public life as if he were an embarrassing college photo. He replaced them with glossy ultrasound pictures of their perfect twins, Mason and Amelia. For 6 years, I had a front-row seat to his fairy tale life, all documented in a golden haze of family vacations to Aruba, ski trips to Aspen, and flawless, professionally shot Christmas cards where they all wore matching cashmere. Meanwhile, my life was a frantic, color-coded binder of medication schedules, specialist visits, and screaming matches with our soul-sucking insurance company over coverage for a wheelchair they deemed not medically necessary. My glamour shots were taken under the fluorescent lights of the emergency room, and now this. An article detailing how their son, Mason, one half of the perfect genetically superior set, is now facing the exact same diagnosis as the child Mark left behind. The child he treated like a defective product, a stain on his otherwise pristine existence. I don't feel a shred of sorrow. I don't feel an ounce of pity. I feel the grim satisfaction of a prophet whose dire predictions have finally come to pass. I pick up the small, silver-framed mirror on my nightstand and look at my own reflection, at the faint stress lines around my eyes that I've earned, lines that tell a story of survival. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I smile. A real, genuine, teeth-baring smile that reaches my eyes. Because Mark and Isabel are just finding out what I've known all along. You can abandon a child, but you sure as hell can't outrun your own blood. Karma, it turns out, has a wicked sense of humor and a long memory. It's funny how your brain protects you by blurring the worst moments, smearing them into a vague watercolor pain. But some memories stay sharp, like shards of glass under your skin. The day of Leo's diagnosis is one of them, etched in hospital-grade beige and the smell of antiseptic. The geneticist was a kind woman with tired eyes who used a lot of soft words to deliver a hard message. Degenerative, progressive, lifelong care, significant developmental challenges. The words floated in the airless room, bumping into each other. I held onto Leo, all of 10 months old and happily chewing on his own foot, oblivious, and felt the world tilt on its axis. Mark was the picture of a concerned father, a role he played with Emmy-worthy conviction. He held my hand, his grip tight and clammy. He asked questions. Smart questions, I thought at the time, about prognosis and research. He rubbed my back and whispered, "We will get through this, Alara. We're a team." But looking back, the cracks were already there, spiderwebbing beneath the surface. Before the diagnosis, when we were just in the "why isn't he rolling over yet?" phase, he'd been dismissive. "He's a boy, Alara," he'd said, not looking up from his laptop. "They develop slower. Stop comparing him to your friend's kids. It's desperate." On the drive home from the geneticist's office, the car was silent for a long time. I was trying to process, trying to breathe. His first concrete question wasn't, "What does Leo need?" It wasn't, "How are you feeling?" It was, "What's this going to cost?" He stared straight ahead at the road, his jaw tight. "This is going to destroy us financially." A week later, I overheard him on the phone with his mother, his voice a low, conspiratorial murmur. "I just don't know, Mom. My career is just taking off. This is a lot. It's not what we planned." He said it as if our son were a poorly timed business merger, a bad investment that was messing with his portfolio. The working late started soon after, becoming his go-to excuse. It was always a big case, a deadline, a demanding client. Isabel is staying too, he'd say casually, a little too casually. She's a lifesaver, organizes everything. I'd be lost without her. I pictured this Isabel as a mousy, overworked paralegal in sensible shoes. I should have pictured a piranha in a pencil skirt with a keen eye for upward mobility. The signs were all there, a pathetic cliche I was too heartbroken to see. The scent of a floral perfume, light, expensive, definitely not my brand, clinging to his suit jacket. His sudden obsession with the gym. The way he'd flinch when I tried to touch him, recoiling as if my grief were contagious. The emotional gulf between us grew wider with every new piece of medical equipment that entered our home. He started looking at Leo not with love, but with something bordering on resentment. Our son was a daily gurgling reminder of his own flawed DNA, an anchor dragging down his perfect life plan. The day he left was a Tuesday. I remember that because Tuesdays were for occupational therapy. I'd spent a miserable morning trying to get Leo to grasp a soft block, my back aching, my patience worn to a single frayed thread. I came home to a house that was too quiet, the kind of quiet that screams. A note was stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a cartoon sun, a cruel little touch of irony. Alara, it began with no warmth at all. I can't do this. This isn't the life I wanted for us. Or for me. I've found happiness somewhere else. I've filed for divorce. My lawyer will be in touch. I'll make sure you and Leo are taken care of financially, but I can't be a part of his situation. His situation, not his life, not his journey, his situation. Like he was a scheduling conflict he was politely declining. I sank to the linoleum floor, the note crinkling in my fist, the cheap magnet smiling down at me. The silence was absolute. No frantic typing from his home office, no sports channel droning on the TV, just a deep, profound emptiness. I think I stayed there for an hour, numb, until a small, unhappy cry came from the nursery. Leo, my son needed me. That single, simple thought was the only thing that got me back on my feet. I splashed cold water on my face, took a deep breath, and walked into his room. As I lifted him from his crib, his little body warm and trusting against mine, the numbness was replaced by a cold, hard resolve. Fine, let him run. We didn't need him. I would do it myself. That first year was a special kind of hell. I quit my freelance graphic design business. Because how could I possibly meet a deadline when Leo had a seizure at 3 a.m. that landed us in the ER? My world shrank to the four walls of our apartment. My friends tried. They really did. They'd call and say, "Let us know if you need anything," which is code for, "I have no idea how to handle your tragic life, so please don't ask me for anything concrete." The money from Mark was just enough to keep us afloat, and I suspected his lawyer, a shark named Brenda, made sure it was the bare legal minimum. Every month was a terrifying tightrope walk of bills and copays. But in the middle of all that fear and exhaustion, something new was growing. A fierceness I never knew I had. Every time I mastered a new medical procedure, every time I won a battle with the insurance company, every time Leo smiled at me when I entered the room, it was a victory. A middle finger to the man who thought we were a lost cause. You can only scream into a pillow for so many nights before you lose your voice. I needed a different outlet, one that didn't involve potential noise complaints. So, I started a blog. I called it Leo's World. It wasn't pretty or inspirational, it was raw. It was my digital therapy. I wrote about the time Leo aspirated his lunch in the middle of the grocery store and the judgmental looks I got from other mothers who probably thought I was incompetent. I wrote about the bone-deep exhaustion of being on call 24/7, a state of being that coffee can't fix. I wrote about the tiny, beautiful, earth-shattering moments, too. The way Leo's eyes would light up when he heard the opening notes of a certain song, the feel of his small hand gripping my finger with surprising strength, the soft scent of his hair after a bath. At first, it was just for me, an anonymous scream into the digital void. Then, I got a comment. "Thank you for this. My daughter has a different diagnosis, but this is the first time I've felt seen. I thought I was the only one. Then another, and another. Soon, Leo's world had a small but fiercely loyal following. It was a motley crew of parents like me, all navigating the messy, unglamorous, infuriating world of pediatric chronic illness. We were a secret society of the sleep-deprived and the medically proficient. We swapped tips on feeding tubes and dealing with condescending doctors who patted our hands and called us mama. We celebrated small victories, a full night's sleep, a successful swallow, a good report from a therapist, and held each other up through the bad days. For the first time since Mark left, I didn't feel completely alone. One of my readers, a mom in California named Sarah, mentioned a geneticist her son was seeing. He's a genius, Alara, but more than that, he's kind. He actually listens. His name was Dr. Eris Thorne. Thorne. The name gave me a moment's pause, a little jolt of unpleasantness like biting down on tinfoil. But it was a common enough name. I pushed the feeling aside and sent him an email, not as a patient, but as a blogger. I detailed the community I was building and asked if he'd be willing to do a quanda for my readers. He responded within a day. His email was warm, intelligent, and respectful. He was impressed with the meticulous records I kept for Leo, which I'd attached on a whim. He agreed to the quanda, and we began a correspondence. He was brilliant, explaining complex genetic concepts in a way I could actually understand. He never made me feel stupid or hysterical, a refreshing change from most of the medical establishment. He became a mentor, an invaluable ally in this fight I was waging. I never once mentioned who my ex-husband was. It was irrelevant baggage from a life I no longer lived. Through the blog, we started a small fundraiser. My goal was $5,000 to buy a piece of assistive technology, an eye-gaze communication device that would allow Leo to select pictures and words on a screen just by looking at them. The community rallied with a ferocity that brought tears to my eyes. We blew past the goal in a week. The day the device arrived felt like Christmas, and my birthday rolled into one. Setting it up was complicated, a dizzying array of cables and software calibrations. I followed the instructions with the focus of a bomb defusal expert, my hands shaking slightly. I programmed in basic words and pictures. Mom, Dad. I hesitated for a long moment, my finger hovering over the delete key, then typed more instead. Drink, hungry, love, pain, music. I positioned the screen in front of Leo, my heart hammering against my ribs. Okay, buddy, I said, my voice unsteady. Let's give this a try. No pressure. Can you show me what you want? He looked at the screen, his brow furrowed in concentration. His eyes, those beautiful brown eyes that held so much unspoken frustration, scanned the options. And then, slowly, deliberately, he focused on a single square, a picture of me. Then he moved his gaze to the simple red heart icon next to it. The robotic voice of the device, clear and emotionless, spoke the words aloud. Love! Mom! A sob caught in my throat. Tears streamed down my face, hot and fast. I wasn't just crying from joy. I was crying from the sheer, overwhelming relief of finally hearing my son speak to me, of him being able to bridge the silent gap between us. I leaned down and kissed his forehead, my tears dripping onto his cheeks. I love you too, Leo, I whispered, my voice thick. So much. In that moment, I wasn't a victim. I wasn't Mark's abandoned wife. I was the mother of a boy who had just told me he loved me. We were thriving. Every so often, I'd have a Mark and Isabel sighting. Once at the grocery store, I saw them in the cereal aisle. He was laughing at something on his phone while she, looking pale and exhausted in an expensive athleisure set, tried to wrangle two screaming toddlers in a shopping cart. They're perfect twins. Another time, I saw them at a park. Isabel was sitting on a bench, staring into space with a look of utter desolation, while Mark pushed the twins on the swings, a fixed, performative smile plastered on his face for anyone who might be watching. I didn't feel jealousy. I didn't feel anger. I felt a strange cold detachment, like a scientist observing a specimen under a microscope. I saw the cracks in their perfect life, the fine hairline fractures that no one else seemed to notice. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that their carefully constructed paradise was built on a foundation of lies, and lies never hold. The first domino fell, as most modern dominoes do, on Facebook. A mutual acquaintance, one of those people you knew in college and are now trapped in a perpetual state of digital observation with, posted a photo album from her son's fifth birthday party, a chaotic scene of superheroes and spilled juice. In one of the comments, she wrote, "So sad the Thorne twins couldn't make it. Heard poor little Mason had a nasty fall. Sending healing vibes." A nasty fall. Okay, kids fall. But something about it made the hairs on my arm stand up. A week later, another post from a different person, a photo from a Mommy and Me music class. Isabel had to leave early. Mason was having another clumsy day. Poor little guy. Clumsy. That was the word they'd used for Leo at first. Before the tests. Before the words low muscle tone and motor control deficits and ataxia entered my daily vocabulary. My snarky internal monologue, my constant companion, kicked in. Yeah, I bet he's clumsy. Clumsy like a fox with a recessive gene? I tried to dismiss it. It was a coincidence. A grim, cosmic coincidence, but a coincidence nonetheless. I was projecting my own trauma onto them, but I couldn't shake the feeling. A dreadful, electrifying suspicion that started as a low hum in the back of my mind and grew into a roaring engine. I found myself scrolling through Isabel's public Instagram, a curated hellscape of beige interiors and happy children. I went back months looking for clues. A video of the twins running in a field. Amelia graceful, Mason a little wobbly. A photo from their birthday. Him sitting while the other kids played. It was subtle. But to my highly trained eyes, it was a siren. During my next email exchange with Dr. Thorne, Eris, I decided to fish. We were discussing a new research paper, and I steered the conversation toward the basics of Leo's condition. "It's a simple recessive trait, right?" I typed, "meaning both parents have to be carriers for the child to inherit it." "Precisely," he wrote back. "The odds are 1 in 4 with each pregnancy if both parents are carriers. It's often a complete shock to the families, as there's rarely any history of it." I took a breath and typed my next sentence carefully, laying the bait. "I know. My ex-husband's family basically blamed my inferior genes for the whole thing. It was unpleasant." The reply from Eris took longer than usual, a few hours instead of his typical quick response. When it came, it was short. "Alara, this might be an odd question, but what is your ex-husband's full name?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Why would he care? But I'd come this far. "Mark Thorne," I typed. "Why?" Instead of an email, my phone rang 10 minutes later. It was Aris. His voice, usually so warm and calm, was heavy with something I couldn't place. "Alara," he said, and I could hear him take a deep breath. "I have something to tell you. I probably should have made this connection sooner, but my relationship with my family is complicated, to say the least." "What connection? What are you talking about?" My heart started to beat a little faster. "Mark Thorne is my half-brother," he said quietly. The world went silent for the second time in my life. The puff and sigh of Leo's machine faded into the background. "Your what?" I mouthed the words, but no sound came out. "We share a father," Eris explained, his voice full of a weary, ancient sadness. "He was much older when he had Mark with his second wife. My mother was a scientist. Mark's mother was not. She preferred to ignore unpleasant truths, and she taught Mark to do the same." "Unpleasant truths?" I whispered, my mouth dry as dust. "Our father was a carrier for the condition," Eris said, and the bomb detonated in my quiet little living room, sending shockwaves through 7 years of pain. "He knew it. My mother knew it. That's why I went into this field of medicine, Alara. I made it my life's work. I tried to talk to Mark about it years ago when he got married to you. He and his mother told me I was being morbid and trying to ruin things. They didn't want to know. They didn't want to test." I leaned back on my sofa, my head spinning, trying to put the pieces together. "So, Mark, he had a 50% chance of being a carrier himself." "Yes," Eris confirmed. "And for his son, Mason, to have the disease." I finished the sentence for him, the words tasting like victory and ash and the darkest, most exquisite irony. "Isabel has to be a carrier, too." The statistical improbability was staggering. It was like being struck by lightning twice. Mark had run from me and our sick child, a child he saw as a reflection of my failure. He'd found a new woman, a perfect woman, to build a perfect, healthy family with, only to discover that he was the common denominator. He hadn't run from my flawed genes. He had run from his own. And in the cruelest twist of fate, he had scoured the earth and found one of the few women on the planet who carried the exact same ticking time bomb in her DNA. It wasn't just genetics, it was poetry. The call came on a Thursday night. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway, expecting a telemarketer. Hello? A choked, ragged sound came from the other end. Elara? I knew that voice, even though it was stripped of its usual slick, arrogant confidence. It was Mark, and he sounded like he was drowning. Mark, I said, my voice flat and cold as a morgue slab. To what do I owe the pleasure? Did you butt dial me while polishing your trophy wife? It's Mason, he stammered, the words tumbling out in a disorganized rush of panic. Oh God, Elara. He's been diagnosed. It's the same thing, the exact same thing as Leo. The doctors, they're asking questions. We don't know how. It's not supposed to happen. I let him flounder. I let the silence stretch, thick and uncomfortable. I could hear a woman sobbing hysterically in the background. Isabel, no doubt, having a full-blown meltdown. Not supposed to happen to you, you mean? I said quietly. I need to see you, he finally choked out, his voice cracking. I need to talk to you. You know about this. You know what to do. You're an expert. An expert? I laughed, a short, sharp, ugly sound. That's rich. I'm an expert because you bailed. I got my PhD in this situation from the University of Abandonment. Last I checked, this was my problem, not yours. You made that pretty clear. Please, Elara, he begged, and the sound of his desperation was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. I'm begging you. I'll come to you. Please. I thought for a moment, picturing his face twisted in fear. Fine, I said, my voice dripping ice. You know where I live. And I hung up. He was at my door in under 20 minutes, looking like he'd been put through a ringer. The tailored suit was wrinkled, his hair was a mess, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked old. He looked defeated. I opened the door and just stood there, blocking his way, making him look at me. He tried to speak, but his eyes went past me into the living room. Leo was in his specialized chair, his eyes fixed on the colorful, swirling graphics of a program on his communication device screen. With a small, focused effort, he moved his gaze and the device chirped, "More stars, please." Mark stared. For the first time, he wasn't just looking at a diagnosis or a problem. He was looking at his son. A 6-year-old boy living his life asking for more stars. The sight broke him. A raw, guttural sob escaped his lips and he sagged against the doorframe. Oh God, he whispered. What did I do? I finally stepped aside. Get in, Mark. You're making a scene for the neighbors you paid so much to impress. He stumbled into the living room and sank onto my sofa, burying his face in his hands. I need your help, he mumbled into his palms. The doctors, the specialists, you have lists, right? You have contacts. I don't know where to start. And the forgiveness? I asked, my voice dangerously soft. Are you here for that too? Because the absolution station is fresh out of stock. Before he could answer, there was another frantic knock at the door. I knew who it would be. I opened it to find Isabel, her perfect face a wreck of mascara and terror. I had to follow him, she said, her voice trembling. I couldn't let him do this alone. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, Please, I know we don't deserve it. I know I was awful, but it's my son. My little boy is sick and I'm so scared. This was it. The moment I had fantasized about for years. The two of them, the architects of my personal hell, standing broken in my living room, begging for the expertise I had been forced to acquire because of their cruelty. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. A strange, icy calm washed over me. I was in complete control. Sit down, Isabel, I said, gesturing to the armchair opposite the sofa. I let them sit there in their misery for a full minute, stewing in the wreckage of their perfect life. Then I began. You want to know how this happened? I looked directly at Mark, my gaze unwavering. It happened because of you. Your father was a carrier. Your half-brother, Dr. Eris Thorne, a man you dismissed as morbid, tried to warn you. You didn't want to listen. Mark's head shot up, his eyes wide with disbelief. Aris? How do you know Aris? He's been a friend to me and a mentor for Leo's care for years, I said, savoring the shock on Mark's face. Funny how that works. While you were running away from your own bloodline, I was embracing it to save our son. For Mason to have this condition, you both had to be carriers. The odds of that are astronomical. You didn't just find a new partner, Mark, you found your genetic destiny. A perfect match in every sense of the word. Isabel let out a little whimper. Mark just stared at me, his face ashen. The truth, laid bare in my living room, was more brutal than any insult I could have hurled. I won't help you, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I won't give you my lists of doctors, I won't share my research, I won't hold your hands. You don't get to abandon the battlefield and then ask for my map when the war comes to your doorstep. You don't deserve my comfort or my absolution. I watched the hope drain from their faces. Then I walked to my desk, picked up a pen, and tore a page from a notepad. I looked at the picture of their son that Mark had pulled out, his hand shaking. An innocent boy caught in this mess. I wrote one name on the paper and handed it to Mark, Dr. Eris Thorne. He is the best in his field, I said, and he is your family. This is your mess. You two can fix it together. I walked to the door and opened it. Now get out of my house. A year can change everything. The stage lights are warm on my face. I can see the crowd as a sea of blurred, expectant faces, but my focus is sharp. My heart is beating a steady, calm rhythm. And so, I say into the microphone, my voice clear and strong, resonating through the large ballroom. We started the Leo's World Foundation, not just to fund research, but to build a community. We created a network of advocates who fight insurance companies, a grant program for families who can't afford equipment. And most importantly, we work to remind every parent who gets a terrifying diagnosis that they are not alone, that their child's life has immeasurable value. The applause is thunderous. I smile and look down at the front row. Leo is there, beaming, his chair positioned for a perfect view. He's wearing a tiny tuxedo t-shirt that he picked out himself on his communication device. Next to him, holding his hand, is Eris Thorne. He's not just a doctor anymore, he's Uncle Aris. He's family. The family we chose, forged in honesty and mutual respect, not lies and convenience. As I accept the Advocate of the Year award, a heavy piece of crystal, I catch my reflection in the polished surface of the lectern. I think briefly of Mark and Isabel. I hear things through the grapevine. It's a small town. They're struggling. Their perfect marriage buckled under the weight of a reality they couldn't Instagram away. Their finances are a wreck from medical bills. Isabel's blog is now a grim chronicle of their journey, and the comments are not always kind. I don't feel joy at their suffering, nor do I feel pity. I feel nothing. A profound, peaceful distance. They are a chapter of my life that is over, a book I have no desire to reread. The smile I have on my face now isn't about their downfall. It has absolutely nothing to do with them. It's about my rise. It's about the fact that I'm standing here, a leader and a voice for thousands, because I refused to be broken. I built a world of purpose and profound love, not in spite of my tragedy, but because of it. Later that evening, after the gala, the three of us are back in our quiet living room. The award sits on the mantelpiece. Aris is showing Leo how to make a shadow puppet on the wall while I sip on a glass of actually decent champagne. Leo laughs, a real, bubbling sound that is the best music in the world. He looks at me, his eyes bright, and navigates to an icon on his device. The robotic voice fills the room. My mom is awesome. I look at my son and at the good man sitting beside him, and my heart is so full I think it might burst. I didn't just survive. We won. I clear my throat, leaning back on the sofa. I have more to do, more families to help, more battles to fight. And for the first time in a long time, the whole world is listening.